The US Marine Corps has a long and proud history of service during conflicts around the world. Perhaps one of the Corps' finest hours was that of the Second World War, in which it took part in the island-hopping operations of the Pacific Theatre. US Marines are most often associated with these island engagements, and it's no secret they fought in some of the bloodiest battles across islands such as Saipan and Iwo Jima. But with the Marine Corps engagements in that region, did any take part in operations in Europe? In today's video, we look at the US Marine Corps' actions in Europe during World War II. If you enjoy this video and want to see more, hit that subscribe button. It's free and really helps the channel reach more history lovers like you. When it comes to the Pacific Theatre, the US Marines seem to take centre stage. Despite the Marine Corps only being made up of 6 divisions, the Army would see closer to 21 divisions engage in operations there. But the Marines, being amphibious experts, were more often than not sent in first to combat the Japanese defenders. These images are what most associate the Corps' version of World War II, but it doesn't paint the full picture. Marines were also deployed to Europe and North Africa, and played vital roles in the downfall of the Germans and Italians. Prior to the war, Marines served in several European and North African embassies as attachés, but as the hostilities grew with the Germans in 1941, their roles would change. The first unit of Marine combat troops to serve during the war would be within the Atlantic Theatre. Known as the 1st Marine Provisional Brigade under the command of Brigadier General John Marston, they arrived in Iceland's capital city in July 1941 with a 4,000-strong force. Iceland was strategically placed in the North Atlantic for both the Allies and Germans. It was well located for both air and naval control of the region, and for the Allies offered protection over the Atlantic convoys, and at that time, Britain's lifeline. But the brigade's existence there all changed following the events of December 1941. With Japan now entering the war, these Marines received orders to return to the US and prepare for deployment to the Pacific. Several high-ranking Marine Corps personnel would serve in Europe and North Africa prior to the US full commitment to the war. In January 1942, Brigadier General Merritt, a Marine Corps pilot, was serving as an observer with the Royal Air Force out of Egypt. He was aboard a bomber which was shot down behind German lines and was subsequently rescued in a daring raid by British commandos. The albeit disastrous raid in the French port city of Dieppe in August of the same year was in part planned by Brigadier General Campbell of the US Marine Corps. He was an advisor to the British staff of combined operations. He would continue to develop techniques for large-scale amphibious operations throughout the war. Many Marines assisted in training British and Americans in beach assaults prior to Operation Torch, the Allied landings in North Africa. The invasion was mostly made up of Army divisions. However, small units of US Marines also took part. They went ashore at Arzew in Algeria, crossing over land to seize the port of Oran, where they occupied a fortress overlooking the harbour. Other Marines landed in Safi in French Morocco and captured an airfield. Marines also served as saboteurs with the Office of Strategic Services, or the OSS, right up until the end of the war. They took part in operations with local partisans in numerous countries across Europe and North Africa. Their expertise with explosives allowed local resistance groups to continue to harass the German and Italian occupiers. However, many of these young Marines would be killed or captured, so was the risk for OSS operatives during the war. Despite widespread misinformation, US Marines were actually present during D-Day on June 6, 1944. Being the largest amphibious invasion in history, it would be a shame for the Marines to miss out on such an occasion. However, their actions on that day weren't typical to their regular work. Because they were considered expert riflemen, many were spread out across the invasion fleet and positioned high in the superstructures of ships. Their job was to fire on and explode any floating mines in the path of the ships moving across the English Channel. Their presence on the ships prior to and on D-Day was however very important. A detachment of Marines, around 200 strong, would typically serve on a battleship, with 80 or so across a cruiser. They were there to man the secondary batteries of 5-inch guns, providing fire for the landing forces. But during Operation Dragoon in August 1944, being the invasion of southern France, they did take part in land operations. Marines from the battleship USS Augusta and the cruiser USS Philadelphia landed in Marseille and accepted the surrender of Germans who had fortified themselves on islands. Although they didn't take part at the forefront in large-scale amphibious operations we see in the Pacific Theatre, Marines were actually an ever-present feature across the globe during the Second World War. Their importance in operations in both North Africa and Europe cannot be underestimated, particularly their role in training British and their fellow American troops. The training they provided assisted in the successful invasions seen in both theatres, which ultimately led to the downfall of the Axis powers and the eventual end of World War II. Were you aware that the US Marine Corps took part in operations in North Africa and Europe? Did you think more Marines should have been deployed there? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to expand your knowledge and join the growing Premier History community.